Okay, welcome back. This is the last part of section 2. So I hope you enjoyed making UFOs in crazy shapes. What I'd like to do is really review the saving process. So remember, in Maya, you don't want to just save the file, you want to save a whole project and then save the file within the project. So if you go to File, Save here, it's going to save the scene in one of your, probably most likely in your Maya defaults folder. So here I don't really have, I have a Maya projects folder here. So depending on, how you're set up your computer, you Maya usually sets up a default folder in like your user folder or on Windows on the C drive or something like that. But what you ideally want to do is make sure you have a project associated with these files, so that you might have, otherwise you might wind up with this massive project that has too many textures and too many pieces of geometry and things like that in it. So what you want to do is always go to the project window at the start of every project. So usually I would do this at the very start of the project, and I just do this once, right? So as long as I'm working on this project, I can make other scenes and save them into that project, and I only have to do this once. I don't have to do it multiple times. But basically, you're going to want to navigate to the path where you want to store that project on your drive. So see how it says location here, and you're going to, all these folders, you can just leave all these default. If you wanted to rename them, you can, but you really shouldn't, because it's Maya's standard way of naming all these files. So I'll go ahead and say new. And so when I go to new, that means I can click on that folder and change the path. I'm just going to leave it there for now, and then I'll just call this UFO projects. And so I can go ahead and accept that. And what it's going to do is it will have created a series of folders. So it hasn't saved the file at all. It's really just saved a project, which is really essentially a series of folders. And those folders may or may not have information in. But what's going to happen later is when you, let's say you render this guy out, and let's say I render him into a window. So here I'm creating a render view, right? So that render view is something that I can save into images. But before we get too carried away, let's save the file first. So first I want to save the file. So I'll go ahead and save the file. And so you notice sometimes Maya doesn't set the project. Like before you start a project, you can go to set project and then pick which project you want. But sometimes when you just first create one, it really doesn't know where you want to go. So I can go ahead and say, okay, set the project to UFO, so it knows to save it there. And now when I go to save, it should theoretically go there. But sometimes it just doesn't do it, right? Sometimes I still have to navigate. So I'll still have to navigate within UFO, and I always want to save my Maya files within scenes. So make sure I save it in scenes, and I'll just call that spaceship. Okay, and save as. Thank you for letting me know. I'm using student copy. And so there we go. So let's go ahead and save that, and I'll just leave you with this project here. And I want to leave you with the idea of an art challenge. So if you want to take an art challenge and you want to post some of your work, go ahead and use this tutorial to create a little space scene. So it can be anything you want. Just I want to see some really. I really love to see what MayaRockStars are creating out there. So if you can create a scene with some simple NURBS and polygon shapes and just render it out using the standard Maya render, since that's what we're using here, go ahead and post a reply video or post your image. But in the end, if you want to render your image out, you're going to want to render it here, and then you can save that image. So when I'm done with that image, and let's say I've finished my space scene, I have all my objects in there, I can save that image there, and it will save it in, it should save it in my UFO/images folder. So you'll want to play around with that too. Like I don't have my render settings real high here. So you might want to, before you do your final, you might want to go to your rendering. And so your rendering settings, you can pull up with this little icon here. And so if you were doing an animation, you would change this to, whatever preferred file format you would want. And you could do a batch rendering. But since we're just doing a still, I'm just kind of saving it to, I'm saving it manually out of the render window. So you can, I would do this at least at, say, 1080. So I'd change this to 1080. And if you want to go to the Maya software and up the quality, you can do that too. So if you want to do highest quality when you're done, just render that and go ahead and post it when you're done. So that is the end of section 2, and thanks for joining us with Maya Rockstars.